Do you see more companies who are interested in just having their own, engineering or manufacturing centers?
So what we have seen the change, Sachin, is that earlier when the German companies used to come to India, it was more setting up a sales and service office.
Or do you see more companies willing to have a joint venture with an Indian manufacturing company?
So they are really investing in India, creating more job opportunities.
Are they considering actually the Indian consumer market for that, or they consider more of global market?
The companies were primarily looking at India for the domestic markets.
Are they really willing to have the global market when they manufacture in India, or they just want to have India as a market and keep the global market aside?
But now, with the global disruptions happening, with the supply chain disruptions happening, the geopolitical tension, we are seeing more and more companies are looking to increase or enhance the capabilities.
And there are a lot of people who really want to get into manufacturing there. Hello everyone, my name is Sachin Sinha, and I'm here again today with a new episode of my Component Club podcast. Friends, as you know, that at Component Club, we are trying to help the Indian manufacturers expand their wings to the global market, especially the European market. And as we know that Europe is one of the largest trading partners of India, it becomes even more important to discuss more and more about what's happening in Europe. In Europe. And when we talk about European Union, probably Germany would be the country, which is by far India's most important business partner when it comes to engineering and manufacturing. So talking about Germany is one of also my favorite subjects because we have been very actively helping the Indian manufacturers connect with the German companies to expand, their businesses. And as we know, I mean, in mechanical engineering, Germany is also known as the Mecca of mechanical engineering. So, I mean, today we are going to talk a little bit more about what's happening in the German market when it comes to manufacturing. And I have a very interesting guest today sitting with me, who has been very actively and very closely working with the German establishments in India. So he understands, within the country, the nooks and corners where German establishments are there, and because of his hands-on experience, he also understands the nitty-gritty of the processes which German companies have adopted over the last years and decades. So he would be able to impart very fantastically his knowledge, which will be very helpful for our audience, myself personally. And we would also like to understand from him how he sees the German collaboration with Indian manufacturers in time to come. So I would like to welcome Mr. Rajesh Nath.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much for taking out time to sit with us today. Mr. Rajesh Nath has been associated with VDMA India, which is the Indian wing of VDMA, the German Engineering Federation, and he has been actively working with this wing for over 26 years now. He carries a very rich experience of over 35 years with the manufacturing industry, and he has been able to bring collaboration and acquisitions with a lot of German companies and Indian companies. So, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Sachin. And thank you for having me today in Component Club. Looking forward to our discussion. And I think you started on a very strong note of Germany being the mecca of engineering
Yes.
sector. And that's what I hope I can share with your audience, my experience with the in the Indo-German or in the Indo-European ecosystem, where I've been involved for a good, almost I would say 35 odd years now.
Yeah, yeah, sir. Yeah. So before I think digging deeper into the subjects which we are going to discuss today,
Right.
I would like to first understand or know a little bit about your experience,
Right.
because it's a long time you have spent with the German manufacturers.
Right.
And when we look at Germany, as an engineering hub, we see iconic brands like Volkswagen, Mercedes Benz, Porsche, BMW,
Right.
Adidas,
Right.
and whatnot,
Right.
which have been probably I mean the most liked brands
Right.
by the global audience.
Right.
So how has been your experience of working with such fine companies,
Right.
and how have you tried to integrate this into your work culture or something like that?
Right.
So if you can,
Sure, would be a
spare some
pleasure,
knowledge. Yes,
Sachin.
yeah.
And I would just like to add on what you said, Sachin. In fact, the Indo-German relationship in the engineering sector goes way back to 1870, when the first telegraphic lines, in fact, it was the German company Siemens which set up the first telegraphic lines connecting London to Kolkata. And I
Yeah.
think this was a major milestone in the telecommunication
Mhm.
industry. So that way you can see that the Indo German relationships have been very old and very strong. And as you rightly said, we have a lot of German companies, Sachin, operating in India. In fact, we would say there are almost 2,000 German companies presently in
Mhm.
India. Uh, from the VDMA side, from the VDMA members, we have about 600 companies who are already active in India. And out of them, roughly around 220 to 230 would have a manufacturing
Okay.
facility in India. And talking about my journey, in fact, Sachin, as you rightly said, I started my journey with VDMA almost 26 years back, and was very interesting. In fact, the whole journey has been quite a learning curve for me. I still remember when I started my journey with VDMA. This was in the year around 99. And people, when I used to visit Germany, uh, people used to ask, why do we need to invest in India? Why do we need to come to India? And if you look at the statistics also, Sachin, that time the export of German machinery to India was about 500 D-Mark, because that time before the euro came, we had the Deutschmark called
Yes,
D-Mark.
yes.
It was 500 D-Mark, and from our VDMA members, we had about 200 companies.
Mhm.
Now, in these, if we say in this 25 years, 2.5 decade, from 500 D-Mark, the export of German machinery has almost increased ninefold, you could say. It's around 4.3 or 4,300 million euros now.
Mhm.
And the number of VDMA member companies also has increased from 200 to 600 now. And most important is where I feel what the biggest change is, the perception of India, which has changed among the German or among the European manufacturers. It is now no longer a question of why do we need to come to India. Now the question is, where can we start in India? Where can we establish
Yes.
ourselves in India? And I think this is for me, I think a very satisfying experience, because all the work we have put in the last 2 decades are now drawing fruits, and we are having more and more German or European companies, especially I would say after the pandemic and with the geopolitical tensions. I think in the last 2 years, we have seen really a good amount of German companies looking at India, expanding in India, setting up in India. Those who already had setups in India have expanded in India. And in fact, I would also like to share with the audience that now it is almost every 2 weeks we have either a new factory opening or expansion of existing factory, or even such in setting up of engineering services.
Yeah.
So you can see the horizon of the expansion of German or European interest in India. And I think this is just the starting phase. I'm sure the next 10 years at least are going to be very interesting when we talk about the Indo German collaboration or Indo European
European collaboration.
collaboration. So I'm quite excited what the next decade holds for us, Sachin.
Yeah, sir. I mean, rightly said. And if I know correct, VDMA as a global entity has been into existence for, I think, more than 130 years or something like that.
Absolutely.
And currently they have close to 3,600 members
Right, right,
globally.
right.
And I was reading somewhere that in last year, 2024, the German mechanical engineering industry contributed to approximately 900 billion euros of trade globally.
Right.
not restricted to India but the globe.
Right.
So I think it's a long way to go still. And as we know that, I mean, Germany, I mean, you ask anybody across the world,
Right.
Germany is definitely respected when it comes to engineering, manufacturing, technology.
Right.
So the companies who are still willing, there are companies who have their own legacy,
Right.
and then there are startups who are, popping up
Right.
in every nook and corner of the country, would
Right.
like to expand to the world.
Right.
And probably India, because the energy of Indian manufacturing is so high right now,
Right.
so more and more German companies or the European companies would like to interact with the
Yes.
Indian engineering,
Right.
platform. There, I mean, you have seen the world. I mean, you have seen the German companies who wanted to enter
Right.
India or who wanted to collaborate 10 years back or 20 years back.
Right.
Now you see them being successful in their
Right.
ventures in India, and
Right.
probably in time to come also there will be many companies
Right.
who would like to expand their wings to the Indian market, or I mean, on the other side, the Indian companies who would like to expand to the German or
German.
European
Yeah.
market. uh, I have one very interesting question, because when a German company is willing to come to India,
Right.
do you see more companies who are interested in just having their own, engineering or manufacturing centers, or do you see more companies willing to have a joint venture with an Indian manufacturing company,
Right.
so that they can also leverage and use the power which exists in the Indian
Right.
skill force? So how do you interpret it?
Very interesting question, and thank you for asking
Yeah.
this question, because I think it is very relevant for the audience also. So, what we have seen the change, Sachin, is that earlier when the German companies used to come to India, it was more setting up a sales and service office.
Yes.
But in the last 5 years, I would say the change has been that more and more companies are now looking at manufacturing in India. So they are really investing in India, creating more job opportunities in India. And of course, we still have a good number of companies who have had close ties with Indian entities with whom they have been working. Either the Indian entity has been a distributor or a partner for them. And the next step now they have taken is forming joint ventures with such companies, Indian companies also. Although I must say now the trend is more and more people, because earlier when we used to look at, say, in the end of 90s or beginning 2000, there was the regulation prohibited 100% subsidiary. So a joint venture route was the most preferable route. But since this 100% subsidiary is possible, now more and more companies are coming, setting up their 100% subsidiaries. So it's a very interesting mix we have. Now companies coming up more looking at manufacturing facility, looking at production facility in India. The ones who had perhaps 10 years, as you were mentioning, 10 years back, set up sales service offices, now they are evoluting to the next stage of setting up manufacturing in India. So I think it's a whole cycle we are seeing, who started maybe 20 years back or 15 years back with the sales service, have then went up to the next stage of assembly. Now have set up full-fledged manufacturing setups in India. Others have started with a manufacturing setup. And in fact, we are finding those who started with a manufacturing setup maybe 5 years back, now the next stage for them is setting up engineering services center in
Yes.
India, sort of mini GCCs in India.
Exactly. The global
So
competence
I
centers.
think it's a very interesting phase what we are seeing now, and I am sure that as we go ahead, we will find more and more such cases, companies looking at setting up manufacturing in India, expanding their manufacturing facilities in India also, Sachin.
Correctly. And sir, I mean, because you have very, I would say, very specific experience of working with the European companies,
Right.
and I'm sure that you would have been an active part in the war rooms, with many companies who are willing to
Right.
try out the Indian land
Right.
for their businesses. So when you sit with these people, and when they discuss with you about saying, having a manufacturing or engineering facility in India,
Right.
are they considering actually the Indian consumer market for that, or they consider more of global market, so they want to manufacture and supply to the globe,
Right.
or they consider more of the Indian consumer and then they want to,
Right.
because I mean, we are from India and we
Right,
understand that, I mean, it's a different system altogether here.
right, right,
And when somebody starts manufacturing in India, they have Indian workforce,
right.
they have Indian manufacturing system. Though, I mean, the manufacturing systems in India, I would say, are actually improving, and are they are nothing less than the global competitiveness, I would say now.
Right,
But I would like to understand, like, the idea and the feeling of these companies.
right.
Are they really willing to have the global market when they manufacture in India, or they just want to have India as a market and keep the global market aside?
I think a very pertinent
Yeah.
question, Sachin, and very interesting actually that you've asked this question, because this is how we are seeing the change in perception of German companies. I think if we look at maybe a decade back or 2 decades back, the companies were primarily looking at India for the domestic market.
Yes.
But now, with the global disruptions happening, with the supply chain disruptions happening, the geopolitical tensions, so now I think, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, we are seeing more and more companies are looking to increase or enhance the capabilities through their Indian subsidiary.
Mm.
And I think this is also in sync with the theme of our honorable Prime Minister with this Make in India program, that you make in India and you are actually now looking at a global market. So we are finding now more and more companies also looking at making in India and creating India as a sort of a center of excellence. That means certain machines you are making in India for the global operations,
Yes.
or certain components you are making in India for the global operations. So, certainly, the aspect of more globalization happening among among the companies, I think that is taking up very strongly. And I think with the present scenario and with the geopolitical tensions around the world, I think this again, India offers a good opportunity. We have good manpower availability in India at a reasonable cost. So when you're manufacturing in India, you're able to make good products at
Yes.
a good price also, and it becomes very much competitive in the global market.
Mm.
So this is a trend we are seeing now, especially in the last 2 to 3 years. And I think going ahead, perhaps we will see an expansion of this trend, that more and more companies. Now, it could be that, okay, certain companies will maybe restrict their manufacturing from India to Southeast Asia or to the Middle East or to Africa. For example,
Yes.
Africa is another market which is supposed to come up very strongly in
Correct.
the future.
Yeah.
And luckily, there are a lot of Indian origin people in Africa. So traditionally, Africa has been quite inclined to Indian products. And I think this is again an opportunity. There's a huge opportunity, uh, of course, for Indian manufacturers, but even for global manufacturers to manufacture in India for the African market. So
Mhm.
there are various dynamics that are coming up, Sachin, and I think these certainly going ahead would make the manufacturing in India more and more attractive.
Mhm. Okay. Good, sir. Yeah, I think there are a lot of insights in
Right.
your statement. And how do you see VDMA? Because there are a lot of organizations who are in some or other way contributing to this particular
Right.
engagement between Europe and
Right.
India.
Right.
How do you see VDMA evolving in last few years and also in
Right.
time to come,
Right.
regarding the support which you give to the companies,
Right.
when they want to grow in the other country?
Right. So, as you rightly mentioned, Sachin, so VDMA, for the audience also, just perhaps say a few words on VDMA. So, VDMA is the Association of the German and European Machinery and Component Manufacturers. We are the largest industrial association in whole of Europe, having about 3,600 member companies. We are headquartered in Frankfurt. Uh, Earlier, it was more German centric, but now in the last few years, we have become more and more European centric and getting members. Almost 400 members are now beyond Germany. So, our aim here is in India, Sachin, is to act as a bridgehead between the German and European industry and the Indian industry. So, what we have done over the years, Sachin, being an industrial association, we have now picked up topics which are of interest to the industry also. For example, in India, e mobility,
Yes.
medical technology, energy efficiency, then traditional sectors like, for example, construction equipment, infrastructure development, or even machining process value chain, smart manufacturing, industry 4.0. So such topics we have picked up here, and we on a regular basis such an organized seminars here in India. So this has been, I think, helping industries from both the countries come closer together, because we have, for example, German or India or European speakers talking about the new technological development, and on the other side you have the Indian audience. For them, it's a good learning what is happening, to get a good grasp of what are the new developments,
Yeah.
technological developments happening in Europe and in India. And also, I think one point which is very important, Sachin, is that with more and more European or Indian, German companies coming to India, it is actually a very good opportunity also for the local industry to evolve, because
Mhm.
the companies, foreign companies coming to India also look to source components from India.
Correct.
They need a good supplier ecosystem in India, and that can be very well fulfilled by the local domestic companies. So it's a huge win-win situation, both sides, I think. With more European companies coming to India, it will help in the development of the local industry and enhance the capabilities of the local industry also. So as VDMA, our goal is certainly to help and connect companies from Europe with the companies from India, and also do seminars or events with upcoming topics like Industry 4.0. Now, Industry 4.0 is a new topic which is also in India gaining more and more prominence,
Yes.
smart manufacturing. So, these are the topics we have been picking up, and I'm sure this will, as we go ahead, we will also have some new topics. In fact, I'll just like to give an example. This year, we organized a delegation from medical technology also to India. And it was very nice because many companies, I think almost 6 or 7 companies, came for the first time to India to
Mhm.
explore what are the opportunities. And when we had the seminar in India, in fact, it gave a very good platform for the Indian companies also to connect with such German companies. So I think our ultimate goal is to strengthen this Indo-German or Indo-European fraternity in the engineering and manufacturing sector,
Mhm.
Sachin.
Yeah, yeah. And it also connects me to another question, because so you have been into manufacturing for about 30 years, 3 decades,
Right,
and you would have seen the growth rate.
right,
Probably it would have been
right,
different in different decades, or I would say in every 5 years, you would have seen it changing.
right,
And there are a lot of people who really want to get into manufacturing,
right,
but for them the things are a little bit skeptical, because manufacturing demands a lot of investment,
right,
initial investment, and for them it's a little bit skeptical situation, or they feel in doubt that if they really invest so much, whether the it is going to reap benefits in future for them or not.
right.
So the question comes that, do you see manufacturing in India uh, saturating in next 10-20 years, or do you feel that it is just still the tip of the iceberg,
Right,
and there is a lot to do in maybe next 50, 100, 150 years?
right,
So how do you see it? Because we have seen countries who have been the manufacturing powerhouses, and due to some geopolitical or some other issues,
right,
uh, they are hit, and the things are changing for them. So how do you see the Indian scenario in this whole
right.
picture?
I think again a very interesting question, Sachin, and I think especially for India, this is very relevant because what has happened in our cases, we have leapfrogged actually from being an agrarian society towards our move towards IT. So if you look at the sector, the service sector, now service sector is all contributing almost 57, 58% to the GDP of the
Mhm.
country. And agriculture, where in fact 50% of our working class population is engaged, is contributing only 16 to 17%. So we have leapfrogged from this agriculture to the IT or to the service sector, and somehow the manufacturing sector uh, got did not get that much prominence. And
Yes.
now I think the government in the last few years, especially with the Make in India program has really given a boost to the manufacturing sector. And what I very much appreciate are the government policies. And secondly, it's a very clear cut foresight or a roadmap, you could say. We are talking now of Viksit Bharat 2047.
Yes.
And when we are talking about Viksit Bharat 2047, we are saying that manufacturing should contribute 25% of our GDP. So, manufacturers' contribution presently is about 16% to the GDP. So, when we are talking about 25%, it's a huge incremental growth that
Yes.
manufacturing will see in India in the coming years. And I think this is certainly the right time for companies who are looking to start manufacturing to get into manufacturing, because there's going to be a huge development in the manufacturing sector in India. Also, with programs like PLI scheme. So, the government's aim is that foreign companies invest in India, manufacture in India, and it is local going global. So, you're producing locally, but for the global market. So, this concept is not only limited to foreign manufacturers, but for Indian manufacturers also. So, India's contribution in the global value chain, Sachin, is at present quite nominal. We are just at hardly less than 2%.
Yes.
And the aim is that we contribute at least 5% in the coming years to the global value chain. And that will only happen when more and more exports come from India. And I think that's why I'm very confident that manufacturing will really is already in the, if you see in the last 2 years, there's government focus on manufacturing through various schemes is increasing. Also, the MSMEs actually, with more and more globalization happening, would really need to gear up to be relevant in today's
Mhm.
scenario. And I think that is where the role of automation, Industry 4.0 comes into play. Because of course, we have various people have different perceptions on automation. It's always a debate whether automation is good for India, to what level. So I think we do in India also require automation.
Yeah.
May not be to that degree as in the Western world, because manpower in Western world is very costly.
Rare. Yeah.
Whereas in India, we have good manpower available at a reasonable cost.
Exactly.
I don't say cheap cost, but at a reasonable cost, you have good manpower. So for us, the challenge is how can we integrate automation with the available human resource in India? And that combination, when we are able to get that right balance, that can really help one in making products, good quality products, increasing the productivity in manufacturing, as well as having cost efficient products. And I think these are the parameters which will help in the growth of manufacturing sector in India. Sachin.
Yeah, I think that was my first. I mean, next question would have been
Yeah,
this: that what could be the probable parameters which
absolutely.
Indian manufacturers can follow other than
Right.
automation and Industry 4.0.
Right.
So you already answered it actually.
Yeah. Maybe I'll add
Yeah.
to that then,
Yeah.
Sachin, like skill development.
Hmm.
Now, our biggest challenge in the industry is we have a lot of graduates coming out. If you look at engineering graduates, science graduates, I think we have almost 1 million graduates coming out every month, I think, in India,
Hmm.
or 1 million added to the workforce every month. But the challenge is, Sachin, the graduates that are coming out, there was a study done, and I think it was mentioned that hardly 14% of these graduates are fit for the industry.
40,
So
40.
one four,
1 4.
one four. So it's a
Very
very,
less.
very less percentage.
Mhm.
So I think that is where there is a big gap between what our educational institute offer and what is the requirement from the industry.
Mhm.
And it is imperative that we try to close this gap, because the graduates have to be more fit for the industry. Otherwise, the industry is almost spending 6 months to 1 year to train these people to be fit for the industry. I have always, my strong belief has been such an, it is in India, it is not the unemployment that is a problem. It is the employability of the people that is an
Correct.
issue,
Correct.
because you have good people, but whether they can be readily utilized in the workforce, that becomes a major issue. And that
Mhm.
is where I think like programs like Skill India, of course, those are the government initiatives, but I think even the industry has to really take a bold step here, we have certain sectors, for example, auto component sector has been very
Yes.
proactive. They have adopted certain ITIs, actually changed the curriculum of these ITIs, which will help in the youngsters coming out from the ITIs to be absorbed by the
Hmm.
auto component industry. Construction infrastructure industry is also doing. But I think this is such initiatives from the industry are required more and more, so that the skill gaps are covered. And I think this is where, when we talk about Germany, you also mentioned about Germany being mecca of manufacturing or engineering. Now, I think this is one of Germany's strong point, is that they have this dual system of training, where the young people are also given practical training.
Yes.
So they undergo the theory training in colleges, and then with the companies they undergo the practical training. So that means in course of the study period, the graduate actually has a lot of hands on work he has done,
Yeah.
and he can be directly absorbed by the industry when he passes out. In fact, they start training with a company, and if they are good, the company absorbs them. That's the first thing. And I think this is again where we need more opportunities also from the industry
Hmm.
for such students, or for such graduate or people who are doing science or STEM graduates, so that they get possibility to do internship in
Yes.
companies, so that they get that practical experience, the practical knowledge. And I think that's a good step taken by the government. It was announced in the budget also that companies who do take interns would also get a support from the government side. And I think this will really boost this internship availability at companies. And this is very essential again for India's manufacturing growth, Sachin.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, a few months back, I also had a podcast with Mr. Arindam Neri,
Right.
who is the CEO of
Yes.
Automotive Skill Development
Right.
Center.
Right. Right.
And he also spoke to me based on his experience in the same lines, that
Right. Right.
because there is, there is a big gap
Right.
between what is actually taught at the
Right.
engineering institutions and what exactly the industry needs.
Industry needs. Right.
And he also talked about, that this practical exposure
Right.
for the students is really, I mean, it's actually rarely seen.
Right.
As you also mentioned, it's only
Right.
14% employability or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So this is a big topic, and I think there is a very big room for improvement
Yeah.
for on the education side, I would say. And I'm happy that you are already answering my questions, before I even ask them, because my next question was actually based on this particular thing,
Right.
that are we really talking about that the education system, because Germany has been successful in making, themselves
Right.
as the engineering and manufacturing powerhouse for
Right.
last many decades.
Right.
And can there be some learning from their education system, wherein the engineers are more taught on the practical grounds, on
Right.
the real internships on manufacturing?
Right.
And definitely, additionally, the theoretical knowledge is very
Right.
much required to
Right.
see the bigger picture.
Right.
That's when you think about
Yeah.
how do you actually fly.
Hmm.
So thank you so much for answering it before even asking. Okay,
Yeah.
so sir, we would talk a bit about component manufacturing, because
Right.
that is also a subject which is very close to my heart,
Right.
and I would say it is also close to many hearts in the
Right.
Indian engineering ecosystem.
Right.
So, what kind of like, I mean, when we are talking about the exports to Germany or to the European Union,
Right.
what kind of challenges do you see, and also what kind of opportunities do you see in next maybe 5, 10, or 15 years, if you can throw some light on it?
Sure.
Your answer, I'm expecting to help. With this answer, I'm expecting to help not myself, but the manufacturers or the people who are willing to have more and more projects from
Right.
the companies based in, or the customers based in European Union.
Right.
So based on your experience, if you can throw some light
Sure.
which can help them,
Sure.
how, in their actions
Right.
which they have to
So
take.
I would like to substantiate that with some figures also, Sachin. So if we look at engineering exports from India to Germany, in fact, it has been increasing year on year. Uh, I think in 23, for the first time, the 1 billion mark was crossed, surpassed in India's engineering exports to Germany. I think presently, if I'm correct, we are at about 1.13 billion
Okay.
is the exports to Germany. So we are seeing that these exports are increasing. Also, I think now it's a very good opportunity, because with all the geopolitical tensions, sourcing from India is becoming more and more relevant and more of interest for the German company. So traditionally, if we see, Sachin, there was a lot of sourcing German companies were doing from China. China was a big hub for the
Yes.
sourcing industry.
Mm.
Now, with the tensions in China, with the slowdown in China, the companies are looking at India, and India becomes an attractive option for the German or European companies. And I think this is where, when we talk about component suppliers, this is where there is a huge opportunity for the component suppliers to really explore these possibilities. I would say get in touch with the foreign companies, manufacturers who are in India. uh, of course, Germany also has a lot of international trade fairs.
Yes.
You've been visiting the trade fairs in
Mm.
Germany. You have seen the exposure that the trade fairs give, because it becomes a meeting point for the global industry there. So I would surely recommend our manufacturers in India to look at the possibility of visiting certain trade shows. First, visit it once or twice, see what potential you have, and then you can look at exhibiting also in the future.
Yes.
In fact, most of the trade shows, Sachin, we find now the Indian participation is increasing. More
Increasing.
and more exhibitors coming from India at these trade shows, whereas we find the Chinese exhibitors are decreasing and Indian exhibitors are
Yes.
increasing. In fact, we had there was this show on. It's called the K Show, which is for the plastic
Mhm.
industry.
Yes.
And what was very encouraging, Sachin, among the visitors, Indian visitors were the fifth largest in the world at
Oh.
this K Show. So again, we are finding more and more Indian companies now
Shows the
visiting.
aggression as well. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So these are all good platforms where they can explore the business potential. And as I said earlier, with the increased interest to source more from India, the companies will really getting a good possibility. Also, as VDMA, we do a webinar. In fact, we have started now a sort of a publication called Sourcing in India, because we found more and more interest of our members to look at Indian suppliers. So, to give the Indian suppliers a platform, we have set up the Sourcing from
Mm.
India, a publication. We come out with two editions of this publication. We also are doing a webinar where, in fact, I would share with the audience, last time we had almost 600 participants in this webinar, out of which about 120 were from Germany or Europe alone.
Okay.
So there is a huge interest now, and this is, I think, a very good time for the local industry, for the domestic industry, to really grasp this opportunity and go ahead, Sachin.
So thank you so much for your answer. And now I would also like to talk a little bit about the machine tool industry, because when we are talking about components,
Right.
definitely, I mean, to produce them, we need the
Absolutely.
machine tools. And I mean, though my experience is, far lesser than yours, but I feel that machine tools probably are the heart of the manufacturing sector when it
Right.
comes to the precision machine
Right.
components,
Right.
right? So we know, there are legacy brands from Germany like DMG Mori,
Right.
Heller,
Right.
Chiron or Hermle, or
Right.
companies like that.
Right.
And they started in India as their, as you said, their sales and services offices
Right.
a few years or decades back.
Right.
And then a few of them, like DMG Mori,
Right.
they tried out, they started
Right.
trying out manufacturing also in India. So
Absolutely.
somehow we see a sign that they also look at India as their future potential partner for manufacturing, not just for the
Right.
consumption of machine tools.
Right.
So how do you think, because there are definitely German companies, and then we also have very uh, legacy based companies from countries like Italy,
Mhm.
Switzerland, and
Mhm.
also France.
Mhm.
So how do you see their development in India, and how do you, on the other side, see the Indian machine tool manufacturers competing with them?
Right.
Because
Right.
the Indian manufacturers are, machine tool manufacturers are also quite
Right.
aggressive. We have
Right.
seen a very good growth in last 5
Right.
to 10 years. I
Right.
mean, the people who used to manufacture, say, 500 machines per year
Right.
have now grown to 3,000, 4,000 machines per
Absolutely.
year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
On the other side, we see that these figures are not growing at this pace for the manufacturers who are based
Right.
in Germany, or or Switzerland, or in European
Right.
countries.
Right.
uh, I can say that there are some critical components which definitely need very
Right.
high engineering and rigidity in the machines,
Right.
and there is no option left. They have
Right.
to definitely go to the mecca of mechanical engineering, Germany.
Right.
But on the other side, the aggression of Indian manufacturers is also something we cannot ignore.
Right.
So how do you see this developing in time to come, and do you also see future potential collaborations between the Indian machine tool manufacturers
Right.
and the European machine tool
Absolutely.
manufacturers? So
Right.
if you can tell us
Sure.
something about that.
And I think, Sachin, if we let's again look at some statistics or figures. So the development of a machine tool industry is very much in India dependent on the automotive industry.
Yes.
Automotive, and now we have the aerospace sector, the defense sector coming in a big way in India. So all this with the growth of our automotive industry, the auto component industry, the OEMs. In fact, I think this year, when I read the figures, I think October sales of passenger vehicles
Mhm.
broke all records, and
Yeah.
especially helped or supported by GST too. The reforms in
Yes.
GST really gave a big boost to the
Correct.
automobile sales in India. So at the moment, I think all the parameters fit very well to the growth of the machine tool industry. You mentioned certain companies. I would just like to add that the company Grobe, for example,
Yes.
Grobe started a manufacturing facility in India last year, and huge again. They've just done phase one. There's going to be, I think, in the next few years, they will also expand to phase two, phase three. So again, they have come, I think, and they have taken a very right approach, Sachin. So the first aim is they're training the manpower here in India. They're making certain components, and from components they will evolve in the next stage to making the full machines. So I think this is a very sensible approach, because you're training the workforce so that when the machines, because Grove has a very good international brand name, and they do not want in any way to dilute this
Yes.
brand name.
Exactly.
So you're having the people, you're training the people in the first phase, where when the machines are manufactured in India, it speaks the Globe standards also in India, what the global standard group follows. So I think we will certainly see more and more interest of the German companies. Uh, what I perceive that in the next years, we will see more of these companies. Some of them you mentioned, like Chiron, or talking about Heller, Hamley, that they would also start manufacturing in India at some stage. I think it is only a question of the time now, and when the market parameters fit in well.
Yes.
Uh, of course, at the moment, with Europe undergoing, or with Germany undergoing a little bit of a difficult phase in the engineering sector or machinery sector, so this can defer the investment opportunity for some time. But I think it's only a matter of time when we will see them also coming and setting up manufacturing in India. You also very rightly mentioned about the growth of the Indian machine tool industry. And I can share my experience. We had the EMO exhibition
Yeah.
in Germany. Now, friends, EMO is the largest machine tool exhibition in the world. And we really saw the number of Indian participants at EMO increased. I think it was record figures in the number
Mhm.
of Indian exhibitors at EMO. Even amongst the visitors, Indian visitors had a good share at EMO. And certainly, Indian brands are becoming more and more stronger, developed technologically, developing well, and also looking at markets, export markets, European markets, African markets. So I think this Indian brands also developing themselves. I think we will see more and more export potentials, more and more awareness globally of such Indian brands. And I think with their participation in international exhibitions, they are attracting a lot of global interest also. So, like we had, I'll just maybe give an example. The ACE Group had a
Yeah.
big god. We had Jyoti, again, a big Indian brand there. We also have BFW, which is a strong Indian brand now growing very, very powerfully. So, I think all these Indian companies, and these are the larger companies. Beyond that, we also have a good number of the mid size family owned Indian businesses also, which have been
Yes.
expanding or participating in events in Germany or in Europe. So I think all this augurs very well for the development of the Indian machine tool industry. And as you rightly said, yes, there is a lot of potential of more collaboration. among German or European manufacturers with the Indian manufacturer. It could be technological collaboration, it could be manufacturing collaboration. We just have to wait and see how all this evolves in the next period to come, Sachin.
Yeah. I think, I mean, the names you mentioned, like Ace Micromatic,
Right,
Jyoti CNC, BFW.
right,
If we really look at their machines, also in last few years,
right,
the aesthetics and the rigidity and the overall, parameters which are required to manufacture components in a better way
right,
have improved a lot.
right,
You see a BFW or an Ace Micromatic machine 10 years back,
right.
and you see what they are
Yes,
manufacturing now. So
absolutely.
there is a big difference
Right,
which can be easily, seen and visible.
right, right,
So
right,
that's happening actually.
right.
And I think there is a connected industry which is cutting tools. Definitely, when you have
Yes,
machine tools, then
yes.
cutting
You
tools is
need
the
the
second
cutting
name which
tools.
comes.
Yes, right,
So we see some brands like Zeka. I think they are also manufacturing in India.
right,
I'm not sure whether they manufacture it 100%, but they
right,
have
right.
some sort
They
of
have a tie-up
manufacturing.
in Aurangabad. I think
Yes.
they're doing.
Then there
Yes,
is a brand called Goring based in
yes,
Bangalore.
absolutely.
Walter, we all know of,
Right,
very long time they have
right,
been very
right,
actively operating in India.
right.
So this cutting tool industry is also probably one of the things which will
Absolutely.
gain momentum in
Absolutely.
time to
And
come.
as you mentioned, all strong brands, I'll just like to add Sirati Set also, a European
Yes.
brand who has in fact really expanded their activities in the last few years. They bought over a few of the German companies also. So all these, the German cutting tool, precision tool manufacturing industry is also growing very strongly. And in fact, I would just like to highlight when we talk about this industry, there's a show called AMB, which happens in Stuttgart.
Yes.
Again, a very good show which really focuses on the cutting tool industry, precision tool industry. And last year, for the first time, Sachin, we organized an India Day at AMB in Stuttgart to highlight India's potential to also sort of talk about European companies who are active in India, sharing their experience, sharing experience from Indians. What are the Indian companies looking at? And again, this year at AMB also, we are, sorry, in 26, we are looking to do the India Day event at AMB. So all these are also efforts from our side together with Mrs. Stuttgart, actually to give a boost to the industry in India and to highlight the Indian industry more strongly.
You mentioned about delegation from Germany to India in the medical industry.
Right,
And we know that when we talk about manufacturing, at least in India, I'm not sure about the global scenario, but at least in India, when we are talking about manufacturing, probably the major chunk would be taken by the automotive industry when we are
right,
talking about the metal
right,
components or something like that.
right,
Other than the auto industry and as you mentioned medical, what
right.
other industries do you see which will witness very deep and aggressive joint ventures or acquisitions or mergers in next, maybe say, a timeline of 5 to 10 years,
Right,
when we are talking about the European and Indian
right.
scenario here?
So, if we look at from the statistics, Sachin, when we talk about which are the top five segments of German machinery exports to India, so we have the first segment is the typical engineering, we call it mechanical power transmission. Here we're talking about gears, couplings, bearings. So, this is the highest, fastest, or I would say the largest chunk of the export, engineering exports from Germany. So this is a sector again. We have like companies like Scheffler who have made huge investments in India.
Yes.
Another family-owned business, Have Hydraulic, which is in the hydraulic sector.
Yeah.
They are in fact going to set up a factory in Bangalore soon. We have the company Renk, which has set up a factory in Hosur very recently. So we have again a lot of German companies who are investing, who are already there, who are investing, or new companies who were not there who have now started investing in India in manufacturing setup. Then coming the next machine tool, as we already discussed, is one of the major sectors. The third largest sector is, for example, textile machinery.
Mhm.
Now, textile machinery traditionally also German companies have been very strong in Indian in
Yes.
the textile machinery. And here again, I would like to highlight this year we had one of the prominent German, again, good family-owned mid German company, Truchler. Now they
Okay.
have set up a factory in near Ahmedabad, and this factory of Truchler in India is now actually bigger than their
Original factory.
than the German factory also. So they are employing almost, I think, 1,200 people here
Mhm.
in India in this
Impressive.
factory. So this is again a segment. Textile machinery is a segment where the German industry is quite well established. Then one more sector I would really like to highlight is food processing and packaging.
Mhm.
This is a sector which actually I've been very closely following this sector, and it's made huge strides. In fact, if I talk 5 years back, I think it was almost in the 12th or 13th position. Now it has moved up to the fifth or sixth position. So there's been a lot of development or exports, and I think also with the changing lifestyle in India, now with the e-commerce coming into
Yes.
play,
Mhm.
so there is a huge potential here in this sector, also in the food processing and packaging sector. Especially, I think the biggest advantage that the German manufacturers offer here is giving hygiene packaging,
Mhm.
which will help in longevity of the products, uh, edible products also. So this is a sector. We have one example here. In fact, in NCR, a company called Multivac, a very
Mhm.
prominent German company, they started a factory, I think, 2 years back in Alwar district in
Okay.
Rajasthan. They
Yeah.
have set up a factory. Again, a very prominent, and that was the factory they set up. And this year, they have set up an engineering service center in Hyderabad. So I think again a very good example of a typical mid-sized German company investing in India. And another sector I would like to mention is the construction equipment
Mhm.
sector. Now, especially with India's focus on infrastructure development, we have a lot of government projects in the infrastructure. We are talking about the infrastructure pipeline, 1.2 trillion dollars being spent on this. In fact, the way we are building road network, the highways we are building, India is presently, may I think, almost about 20 to 22 kilometers of road per day is being constructed in India, which is in a way a record of sorts.
Yes.
Last year, in fact, almost, if I remember correctly, around 8,800 kilometers of highway were constructed in India. Then we are talking about port connectivity. We are talking about Sagarmala projects. So there's a lot of infrastructure projects happening, and rightly, the focus of the government is also to improve infrastructure in India. And this becomes a very important point, not only for foreign manufacturers, but for the domestic industry. Because at the moment, Sachin, our logistic costs are very high in India. And with better infrastructure, you can really reduce the logistic cost. And this is where I think all the government spending in infrastructure is happening. And airports, again, we are seeing, in fact, in the last, if you look at 10 years ago, we had 74 airports in India. Now we have 154 airports in India. And I think, as per the government plan, we plan to have 200 airports by 2030. So, again, connecting smaller towns with larger towns, giving more business opportunities to connect smaller industrial towns with the larger cities also. So I think in a way we are also through this infrastructure development trying to bridge this urban rural divide in
Yes.
India. And it is also, I think, very essential because you can't have development happening only in the urban areas or in the metros. You need to have development in tier 2, tier 3
Exactly.
cities.
Yes.
For India to develop, all these cities, the tier 2, tier 3 cities need to develop. And I think this is where then these connectivities will really help in the development of these cities. I would also like to highlight to the audience that as VDMA, in fact, we did a seminar this year, one in Kolhapur and one we did in Baddi, basically trying to show the importance of these tier 2 tier 3 cities also, and to for the European companies to also connect with these tier 2 tier 3 cities. So I think this is where holistically, when we look at, these are the segments where we are traditionally seeing good German exports happening to India, the segments which will of course continue to develop. And I would say also there was going to be a lot of development in the renewable energy sector. Semiconductor is another sector where India is actually focusing a lot. Electronic sector, semiconductor sector coming in a big way. Medical, I already mentioned. This is again one of the upcoming sectors in India where there is a huge potential in India. Uh, and of course, when we talk about automation, to some talking about smart manufacturing, so automation solutions also. So these are the sectors I think where there would be much closer interaction between the European industry and the Indian companies also, Sachin.
Mhm. Do you also see some movements in the aerospace industry?
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Good.
Have
I
a sip.
think
Have a sip.
yes,
Not a
yeah.
problem.
I think a very good point you raised, Sachin, and certainly the aerospace industry again is growing very well. And I would like to share my personal experience. Just 2 3 days back, last week, in fact, I was at the IMS
Bangalore.
in Bangalore, and I must say I was quite surprised to see the number of Indian exhibitors there who are making components for the aerospace industry. And especially for me, it was very encouraging to see because these are all, I won't say large companies, of course, larger companies were there, but you had a huge range of the mid size, the typical Indian SME
SMEs.
sector, smaller places, Hubli, Belgaum, Hosur, participating in this show. And it really, I was really very enthusiastic to see such development happening in these SME sectors also. Now, and many of them are suppliers to big companies, be it Airbus, be it Boeing, and all that. So this was very encouraging, and I'm sure this, with the development of the aerospace, of course, one side is the we are also seeing from the government side a lot of spending in defense in the aerospace industry also. So I think HAL, there's a lot of development happening. HAL is also, in fact, again, we spoke about the machine tool industry. Now, HAL is a prominent customers for many of
Yes.
the machine tool manufacturers also, because here you are looking at very sophisticated components to manufacture very
Yeah.
sophisticated high-end components, and that is where I think the European industry really stands out with their ability of these machine tools companies to make really very precise and sophisticated components.
Mhm.
So I think overall, aerospace, automotive, defense, these are huge sectors where India will see huge automotive. Of course, we have a mature market, but with more and more government spending on defense, I think this will give the Indian companies also, the Indian entrepreneurs also, a huge possibility. Such a
Mhm. And sir, because okay, you can keep on sipping
yeah,
your tea.
yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't want to disturb you on that. Because you have a very clear visibility, you are working on the pan India level with many Indian manufacturers also and the German establishments. So you would have a very clear visibility when it comes to the geography.
right,
Uh, on my part, when I'm talking to a few European companies, they always have this question, if they are willing to
right,
make an entry to the Indian
right,
land, they always have this question where, like,
right,
which
right,
place is the place to be.
right.
So I'm not very sure because I don't know the numbers. But what do you feel? Do you see more investments or the interests coming in the lower half of the country, or do you see it is spread out equally? If you can
Right.
tell us something about that.
I think in an ideal situation, it should be spread throughout the country. But
Yes,
unfortunately, I think
it's not like
we are
that.
not seeing the spread happening in many areas. Certainly, I think if you look at the states, the western states have been able to attract much more. Maharashtra, for example, is quite a hotbed for the manufacturing industry. Then Gujarat has also attracted a lot of manufacturing companies, a lot of foreign investments coming into India also. Then we have also traditionally, like Karnataka has traditionally been a very strong hub for example, machine tool industry,
Yes.
cutting tool industry. We also have the fluid power industry very strong, construction equipment industry. And Tamil Nadu, again, automotive, when we talk about automotive, we find a lot of auto component manufacturers, the OEMs
Mhm.
in Chennai. So I think, and then if you look at from the Indian perspective, I'm always very encouraged whenever I go to uh, Coimbatore.
Yes.
Now, again, you find a lot of well established Indian mid sized companies. And in fact, Coimbatore, in a way, for me, represents also is a shadow of what Germany is. Again, the strength of the so-called Mittelstand or the
Yes, yes,
SME sector.
exactly.
That is very strong in Coimbatore. But beyond these regions, I think it is very essential that, as I mentioned earlier, some of the other industrial towns also develop more in India, like
Mm.
Kolhapur, Aurangabad, I think Belgaum,
Belgium.
Hubli. These belts really have a good potential. Now we find more and more UP also trying to attract investments. Kanpur, for example,
Mm.
for the railway industry, it's becoming more and more
Yes.
of prominence. But we need to also see more development happening, for example, in the eastern sector. Also, Grobe, for example, has set up in Andhra Pradesh. So,
Mhm.
Andhra Pradesh, Telangana being a new state, is also trying to attract a lot of industries. So, it is essential that we see a more broader spread of the industry, and it is important also that all the development of industry does not be confined to some of the traditional cities, as I mentioned, like Bangalore, Pune, but it needs to spread to the neighboring. In fact, I had expected a lot more growth happening in Nasik
Mhm.
because of the connectivity of Nasik to
Yes.
other, for example, to Bombay or to the ports in Bombay or to Pune. And I'm sure that will also pick up in the
Correct.
coming period also. Sachin.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Good, sir. Thank you so much for the insights.
right,
And I mean, we know that we are living in the age of concepts. We are
right,
talking about more conceptual things. Earlier, it used to be, more simple and
right, right.
traditional, something like that. But we are talking about more and more concepts. For an example, Industry 4.0.
Hmm.
The name looks very aesthetic. It's a concept we are working on, but the story behind is, far more deeper.
Right.
So, as a concept, I was actually talking to a lady, I would say a few months back, who is involved in some, global industrial association. And
Right.
she was talking to me about a triangulation concept,
Mhm.
which consisted of three regions,
Huh.
that was India, Africa,
Mhm.
and Europe.
Mhm.
And we were actually discussing how these three regions, if we put them together and make a triangle,
Right.
how they can, with their own set of strengths,
Right.
help each other
Right.
grow
Right.
globally.
Right.
So like you mentioned about the problem of logistics, the issue
Right.
of logistics,
Right.
which is a very genuine issue with the
Right.
manufacturers when they have to actually export
Right.
the things, or the people who have to import something from the other country.
Right.
So have you also been somewhere near to anything like triangulation between the three regions or something, or do you see a potential in this kind of concept in time to come?
I think
Because you
certainly
also mentioned about Africa, so I'm asking
certainly a
this
very
question.
interesting question. I must confess, personally, I've not been so involved in business in Africa. Of course, the Indo-European sector I've been very closely involved. But what I could say from the European perspective is that there's a lot of interest to do business in Africa. Now, the difficulty European companies face in Africa is the cost point
Mhm.
of view, because
Okay.
Africa, like India, is a little more price sensitive market.
Mhm.
So that is where they see that exporting from India to Africa is a much better proposition than trying to sell directly from Europe to Africa.
Okay.
So I think that is where we will, I think, more, and that is what I mentioned in my earlier question or reply also, that companies are looking to manufacture in India, even looking at the to cover the African market from India. In fact, we already have a lot of examples where the installation and commissioning of European machines are being done by their Indian counterparts in Africa. So rather than sending someone from Europe, they are sending the Indian
Yeah.
service engineer to do the installation and commissioning
Yes.
of the
Mhm.
machine. But this is a very interesting question, and I'm sure there's a lot of potential to develop this triangle also, if we may call it. Other is, of course, the from the German perspective, the Indo-Pacific. So they are talking of much stronger trade in the Indo-Pacific, bringing the Indo-Pacific region together. So where also you're talking about Australia, you're talking about New Zealand coming in. Australia now again in certain sectors, for example, the mining sector is very strong, very well established in Australia. In fact, we have also a lot of German companies who do a lot of business in the mining sector
Yeah.
in Australia. So these are interesting combinations we will see, and I think to some extent the geopolitical issues and tensions will also perhaps lead to new areas or new regions coming together. But I would say this, in the last periods, the geopolitical situation is so volatile. One
Yes.
really can't comprehend what will happen in the coming years because of these disruptions in various format, either political disruptions, or coming through conflicts, or coming through trade, actually, trade barriers coming in. So I think we are in a very interesting times,
Yes,
Sachin.
very interesting
And
times.
we just have to see. It is very difficult to predict. I think that is one of the challenge for the leaders now,
Yeah,
the CEOs of companies. How do you predict now what will the
exactly.
future hold? Or one can't even say the next 2 or 3 years what will happen in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. But I think that is the beauty of the game, because if you
Right.
know everything,
Right.
beforehand, then
Right.
there is no fun.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that brings beauty and
Yeah.
adventure to the game,
That's right. That's
overall
right.
game.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And so do you also work closely with the embassies? Because, when we talk about, like, I mean, if, as a layman, if I am an individual and if
Right.
I think of expanding to some other country, probably embassy would be the first thing which will come to my mind.
Right.
And I would reach out to them to understand, what could be the right steps.
Right.
So, are you also working with the embassies very closely? And because VDMA is probably, the most influential voice of the equipments and machinery manufacturing
Right.
industry from
Right.
Germany,
Right.
so I'm sure
Yeah.
there would be some connect. And I would like to actually understand how you work with them. And for a person or for a company, if they are willing to have the next steps cleared,
Right.
what could be your advice to them? What steps they can take?
Right.
Can they contact you? Or, I mean, if you can just connect
Right.
some dots on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coming to your question, Sachin, yes, we are working very closely with the German embassy.
Mhm.
In fact, many of our events, we have also participation from the German embassy. Even the German consulates in the various cities, we are working very closely with them. And also, I must add to that, now with our endeavor to do more India related events in Germany, we are also working quite closely with the Indian consulates in Germany. For example, we had the Indian Consul General from Hamburg coming in for the India Day at the Hanover
Mhm.
event. Recently, we also had for one of the exhibitions in Germany, the Logimart. We had the Indian Consul General coming in from Munich to Stuttgart to address the audience at this India Day event. So that way, yes, we are uh, interacting more closely with the Indian consulates also in Germany. Of course, with the German consulate here in India, we are very closely involved. And as I mentioned, to the Indian manufacturers, we are providing these platforms like this sourcing newsletter or the sourcing webinar, actually to help and promote the Indian suppliers amongst the German or European countries. We also organize delegation visits from Europe coming to India, such as like this year we had a medical technology delegation. We
Yeah.
had we also had robotic automation delegation coming to India. In fact, we did a very interesting India Day at the Automatica in Munich, which is again a exhibition focused on the automation industry. So through these endeavors, we try to link the Indian industry with the German or the European companies. Also through our technological forums or platforms, the seminars, what we are doing. Again, we are giving an opportunity for the Indian industry to interact with the German companies, and vice versa to the German or European companies to interact with the Indian industry. We also maintain a close network with the various chambers of commerce
Mhm.
in India. Like we just had we traditionally participate also the CII, for example, does the IMME, which is a mining exhibition in Kolkata. So we organize the German or European pavilion at the IMME.
Okay.
Then XCon is there, which is coming up for the construction equipment industry. There also we are very closely linked to the German
Mhm.
pavilion at XCon, and in fact, the XCon would be held now in the month of December in Bangalore one of the largest exhibitions for the construction equipment industry. And I think this time we have the record number of German companies participating at XCon. Then there is in BC India, which is Baumacon Expo
Hmm.
India, again for the construction equipment industry, which happens here in fact in
Noida.
Greater
Yeah,
Noida.
Greater Noida,
So
yes.
there also we are closely involved with the German pavilion. In fact, we also organized a nice session with the Indian construction equipment industry also at the last BC India. So through these various endeavors or platforms, we are trying to connect European companies with the Indian companies, Sachin.
Hmm. Yeah, I think with your statements, it's quite clear that there is a lot to do still.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, at no stage we are going to see the saturation in
Absolutely.
manufacturing,
Absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
probably, as I actually wanted to ask, it still the tip of the iceberg,
Right.
which
Right.
we see, and there is a lot to do.
Right.
And I really feel that I mean, uh, the aggression we have in the Indian skill force,
Right.
if we really match or integrate this efficiently and effectively
Right.
with the German supremacy of engineering
Right.
or manufacturing,
Right.
then there are wonders which can happen.
Hmm.
So that is something which I
Certainly.
really feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, certainly. As you correctly said, Sachin, there's a huge scope, still, there's a huge scope for the Indo German or Indo European trade in the engineering or
Yes.
machinery sector.
Yeah. So, sir, do you have anything else to share with the audience? Probably, any event which is coming up in your surrounding, or I mean VDMA's
Right.
purview. So feel free to
Sure,
talk
sure,
about it. Yeah.
sure, Sachin. So, as I was mentioning earlier, our endeavors to connect the industries, the German industry, with the Indian manufacturers also. So, for example, we are doing in Pune on this thing 14th of November. We are doing the Western India meet, and then in December we have our events in Coimbatore and in Jamshedpur. In fact, so in Coimbatore, we are doing a southern region meet, and for the first time in Jamshedpur, we are doing the eastern region meet.
Okay.
So again, this is an opportunity because Jamshedpur again is a strong, as I mentioned, a
Yes.
tier 2, tier 3 city, which has a lot of industrial base. We have the Tata Group companies there, but beyond that also there's this Adityapur cluster in
Yes.
Jamshedpur, which is
Yes.
very strong. So this is our endeavor also to, as I mentioned, to go to uh, tier 2 cities also and to connect with the industries in the tier 2 cities. So this is what we have in the next few, I would say, in the next coming period. And then, of course, we keep on doing next year again. We will like to touch upon a lot of technology related topic like smart manufacturing.
Mhm.
We will do a seminar on smart manufacturing. We are also looking to do a seminar on the textile machinery industry. Then we would also e-mobility we would do next year. Battery production, we may have a session also on battery production in India. So these, I think these would be the topics, forthcoming topics, which we will, as VDMA, take it up. And of course, here in NCR, normally we do our North India meet also in the month of around, we do it normally in the month of July,
Okay.
which again we will be doing in 26 in July in the NCR region. So our focus remains very strong, Sachin, is to promote and help in the development of the Indo-German, Indo-European trade in the engineering sector. And I'm sure this sector, we are seeing a growth happening. For example, when we talk about the bilateral trade among Germany and India is growing year on year.
Yes.
This year also, we are quite positive on the. It's already crossed 30 billion euros, and we are positive that this year also we will see a growth in this
Mhm.
sector happening. And also, I think, I personally am very enthusiastic on the more and more German companies coming to India, investing in India, as well as sourcing from India.
Yeah.
So I think these remain good potential for European or German companies in India. And I personally feel that engineering services, these mini GCCs, and sourcing. These are something which will really pick up very strongly in the coming period.
Yes.
So I think there is a lot of potential again for the local industries, also for the domestic industry here, Sachin. Yeah.
Mhm. Good, sir. And you mentioned about GCC, sir. So it's a, I would say, I mean, for last few months, I'm not sure, maybe years, it has been a buzzword.
Yeah.
The global competitiveness centers or something
Right.
like that, right?
Global capability center. Yeah.
Capability centers. Okay.
Right.
So for me also, it's relatively a new word, and I don't know much about it, though
Right.
I understand what probably could be inside them.
Right.
But can you, I mean, in a few words, if you can tell our
Sure.
audience what exactly are the global capability centers and why
Right.
companies are looking at India to establish their GCCs?
Right.
Yeah, if you can.
So
Yeah.
I think an interesting question, and especially I would like to explain it from the German perspective also. So typically, what was happening, such in India, was being utilized for the low end jobs,
Mhm.
like you had these back office functions. So I think this is where we have seen the evolution happening. It's no more now we are talking with the GCC. It's no more the low end jobs, but you are talking about high end work, be it automation development, be it R&D happening in India, be it the engineering services. So these are all high end work, and this has really helped to push India up the value chain.
Mhm.
Because a call center can be set up anywhere,
Yes.
but if you're doing R&D, if you're doing some development in automation, industry 4.0, you need to have the skilled manpower availability, and that is where I think this is becoming more and more interesting for India, and especially under the scenario that manpower, one, there is a shortage of manpower in Germany or in Europe. The cost of manpower is increasing incredibly. So that is where I think India really offers a good opportunity. Of course, there are GCCs. One talks about other Southeast Asian countries also, like Philippines, Thailand. But I think the biggest advantage India offers is one, good English speaking workforce that we have. And the second, there are very few countries who can scale up so fast.
Hmm.
Now, if you're looking from day zero, perhaps to scale it up to 1,000 people or 2,000 people in 6 months' time, India is perhaps the very few countries that can offer that scaling up effect. The other countries may not be able to offer such fast scaling up, but because of our abundance manpower availability in the country, we can really offer the scaling up
Hmm.
effect. And we have SAP, which has almost now, I think, almost they set up a new center in
That's
Bangalore.
also German. SAP is
German,
also.
yes, that's right. So SAP is talking about almost employing now 15,000 people in this new center, tech center, what they have opened in Bangalore. We had the erstwhile Continental. Continental has about 8,000, 9,000, or 10,000 people
Mhm.
working in the GCC. Uh, and I think beyond the larger companies like Bosch, again, Siemens, these all have large GCCs in India. But beyond the larger companies, we also have a lot of mid-sized German companies, family-owned German companies, which are setting up these engineering centers, or I would call it more a mini GCC, because we are talking here, we're not talking about, say, 10,000 people, but we are talking about, say, starting with about 50 to 100
Mhm.
people, and then scaling it in a 1 or 2 years period. But I think this is where, with more and more mid-size, the German so-called Mittelstand also investing in the engineering centers in India, I think this gives a lot of opportunity for growth, because the German industry per se, the bigger companies find their own way. But I think it is really when these mid-size family-owned businesses also start coming to India,
Mhm.
that it is really becoming more and more interesting and
Yes,
attractive
exactly.
for the market. Yeah.
Correct, sir. And sir, I think for the benefit of the audience, you can also tell us, because historically VDMA has been an agency or the organization related to the German engineering
Right.
industries. But I think a little while ago, you changed it to the European
European.
Union's
Yes. Yeah.
association or the
Yeah.
representation.
Right.
So now we are not just talking about the German industry, but we are talking about the complete European Union, all the countries inside it. So
Absolutely.
maybe in the time to come, there
Yeah.
will be discussions alongside your partners related to the countries like Switzerland, France,
Yes,
because
yes.
these are also substantial countries when we
Right,
talk about engineering
right,
and manufacturing.
right.
So, if you can tell us in a few words, how does it mean
Sure,
for the people or for the
sure.
industry stalwarts?
So, as I mentioned, Sachin, in the last, I would say, 5 years or 4 to 5 years, we've had now almost 400 member companies in VDMA, which are from the European countries. And VDMA on its own has also now set up, we have office in Austria, we have an office in Poland, we have an office in Italy. So we are also expanding in Europe. So because more and more activities are not in European Union, are not just confined to individual country, but as an entity as a whole of the European Union. So more and more activities are becoming Europeanized, I would say. And that is why VDMA took this step. So we have renamed ourselves from being just the German machinery industry. Now we call ourselves the European Machinery Association. So our endeavors is also to support the European companies coming to India. And as you rightly said, we have some very good Italian companies also, for example, who have become now VDMA members in India. They are also participating in many of our events here in India also. And I think, again, for us, this expands the horizon a lot, and it gives some of the European companies also, especially from smaller European countries, a good platform through VDMA, because I think the biggest support we offer such European companies is the global network of
Yes.
VDMA. So we are not only confined to Europe, like we have 4 offices here in India, we have 2 offices in China, we have an office in Brazil. Now we have set up office in Africa also. We have 2 offices in USA. We have an office in Japan also. So that way, the global network of the VDMA can now be tapped upon by the European companies who become
Yes.
members of VDMA. So I think this is where the biggest benefit that VDMA offers is that for the companies, it becomes much more easier through one platform or one channel of VDMA to get information what is happening globally. And through the local offices of VDMA, we stand to support our members also. For example, new members coming to India. So we become like the first point of contact for the VDMA members new who are not yet in India. And those who are already in India, we help to establish a strong network among the companies. We take up then topics of interest, for example, this scheme X or the this regulation, OTR regulation, BIS regulation is, for example, quite a hot topic now for the companies. So we have taken it up with Ministry of Heavy Industry. We have taken it up with BIS. In fact, we have a colleague of ours also from the standardization department from Germany who comes every year to India. He interacts very closely with BIS. He has been also conducting workshops with BIS. Now we have BIS and Ministry of Heavy Industry officials planning to go to Germany also. And as VDMA, we are organizing some factory visits for the people also, so that they see what is happening in the factories in Germany or in Europe. So that has been our endeavor, and that is where I think VDMA as a platform offers a lot of benefit and opportunities to its members, such.
Great, sir. I think it's been a wonderful discussion today between us.
Thank you.
And for the audience, also, if you're a person who is willing to enter engineering or the manufacturing per se, probably you will find a lot of information and insights for yourself. If you're a company who is willing to expand their wings to the other countries, especially in Europe and also in Germany specifically, or if you are thinking about the capacity expansion, probably you would have already got the answers for your doubtful situations.
Right.
So thank you so much for your time today, and I wish that the Indian manufacturing will definitely excel with the European collaboration.
Right.
And I also wish you the very best in the endeavors, which VDMA and yourself personally are
Right.
taking to improve the ecosystem, the
Right.
manufacturing ecosystem in the country.
Right.
Thank you so much for your time,
Thank
Sachin.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sachin. Was a pleasure, and thank you for having me on this podcast today. And wishing Component Club also a lot of success. And I think such endeavors to spread the information and benefit your audience. These are, I think, very good endeavors, and I wish that you continue with these endeavors. And I think, as you rightly said, let us hope that the Indian industry, the Indian manufacturing ecosystem, spreads and becomes stronger, more robust, because manufacturing is going to be one of the key sectors of India's growth story. So I would like to conclude and say that let's be part of India's growth story and let us do our bit to expand India's growth story. So
For sure,
thank
sir.
you. Thank you. Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
thanks, guys. Thank you, friends, and don't forget to subscribe us on YouTube. The name of the channel is Component Club. See you again. Bye bye.